Welcome to the Crimson Dossier. Every case has a file. Not every file has answers. Part 1. The Woman They Couldn't Ignore. Moscow, July 1939. A woman is screaming inside her apartment on Bryasov Lane. Her neighbors hear it. They've heard it before. She suffers from nervous episodes. Has for years. They roll over and go back to sleep. By morning, Zinaida Reikh is dead. 17 stab wounds. Not a single valuable taken from the apartment. The police will never open a case. To understand why Zinaida Reikh was killed, you need to understand who she was. She wasn't just an actress. She was the kind of woman the Soviet Union simultaneously celebrated and feared. First wife of poet Sergei Yesenin, the golden voice of Russian verse, beloved by millions, dead by his own hand in 1925. Then wife of Vsevolod Meyerhold, the most radical, the most brilliant, the most dangerous theater director in the USSR. A man who had spent 30 years reinventing what theater could be. A man who refused to make his art obedient. Reikh was the lead actress of Meyerhold's theater, his muse, his partner, and, by 1939, his greatest liability. Because Meyerhold had enemies, powerful ones, and in Stalin's Soviet Union, the enemies of your husband became your enemies too, whether you wanted them or not. On June 20, 1939, Vsevolod Meyerhold was arrested in Leningrad. His Moscow apartment, the one he shared with Reikh on Bryasov Lane, was searched the same day. Several rooms were sealed by the NKVD. His colleagues, his collaborators, the people in his orbit, arrested one by one. Zinaida Reikh was left alone in what remained of her home, surrounded by sealed rooms, surrounded by silence. She had 25 days. On the night of July 14th, someone entered her apartment. What followed lasted long enough for the neighbors to hear the screaming, and long enough for them to decide it wasn't their problem. 17 stab wounds, 16 to the chest, 1 to the neck. She was still alive when they found her. She died on the way to the hospital. Nothing in the apartment was taken. The official version was robbery. It collapsed immediately. Nothing was stolen. Not her jewelry, not her money, not a single object of value. And yet no criminal case was opened. No investigation was launched. No suspects were ever named. In Stalin's Soviet Union of the late 1930s, this had a specific meaning. When the NKVD wanted someone dead but needed distance from the act, they used criminals. Recidivists, men who were already inside the system, already broken, already willing. You give them a name and an address. You make sure no one looks too hard afterward. The murder is staged as a robbery. The robbery goes unsolved. The case is never opened, because the people who would open it are the same people who ordered it. Whether the order came from Stalin directly, from Beria, or from someone further down the chain, that has never been established. It likely never will be. What we know is this. Meyerhold was arrested on June 20th. Reikh was murdered on July 14th. The apartment had already been searched. The message had already been sent. She was killed because she knew too much, or because she would have spoken, or simply because she was his, and destroying him meant destroying everything connected to him. In Stalin's USSR, all three reasons were sufficient. Vsevolod Meyerhold was tortured for months. He wrote a letter from prison that survived. In it, he described what was done to him in detail. The beatings, the methods, the confessions extracted by force. It is one of the most harrowing documents of the terror. He was shot on February 2, 1940, 6 months after his wife was murdered in their apartment. For decades, both of them were erased. Meyerhold's name was removed from theater history. Reich's name disappeared from programs, from records, from memory. It wasn't until the 1970s that people began to speak of her without lowering their voices. Close. For 50 years, Moscow whispered about what happened on Bryasov Lane. The official story was robbery. Everyone knew it wasn't, but knowing and saying were two different things, and in the Soviet Union, the distance between them could cost you everything. Zinaida Reikh screamed for her life in a building full of people. Nobody came, not because they didn't hear her, but because they had learned, by 1939, exactly what it cost to get involved. That silence, that trained, practiced, survival instinct silence, was the most powerful weapon the terror ever produced. And it worked perfectly that night. This has been the Crimson Dossier. The case of Zinaida Reikh was never officially solved. It never will be. But forgetting it is a choice, and we're choosing not to.